When it comes to your marketing, messaging matters. It's how you connect with people. It's how they build trust with you. It's how they engage with you. It's how they decide if you're the right organization for them or someone else's. And while you might be thinking about this from a social media standpoint or maybe even a long form content standpoint, it's super important when it comes to your emails, especially if you're sending them regularly. We want to build on that emotion. We want to build on that connection so that they really keep opening future emails, right? They know there's value in there that they're excited to hear about. And so today, my guest is John Gumas, and he is here to talk about all things email messaging strategy. A veteran of the advertising and interactive marketing industry, John founded Gumas Advertising in 1984. Today, the award-winning firm is consistently named as one of the top branding and interactive marketing firms by the California Business Times. John is recognized as one of the country's foremost authorities on challenger brand marketing. He is the author of the popular book Marketing Smart and Challenger Brand Marketing, which describes how challenger brands can effectively develop marketing strategies to take on their larger competitors. In addition, John has been the adjunct professor of branding, advertising, and interactive marketing, a sought-after speaker, and a regular columnist for several publications and blogs. John currently sits on many boards, including the San Francisco Giants, the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce, the San Francisco University Foundation, the Greater San Francisco Advertising Club, the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame, and the Elios Society. John was recently inducted into the San Francisco State University Hall of Fame and was Alumni of the Year. John has also been recognized for his extensive community service and leadership by the U.S. Senate and the San Francisco Giants. So we did an episode with his business partner all about challenger brand marketing. So we will link that up in the show notes for this episode. So if you want to check that out, because we don't really talk about challenger brand marketing a ton in this episode, but for a lot of you nonprofits, it's a great conversation to have because it's all about how do you get up and above the noise? How do you separate yourself out from your competitors who may have more budget, more resources, more whatever. So definitely give that one a check, and you can view the show notes at thefirstclick.net/250. Okay, so enjoy this conversation. Think about the messaging in the way that we talk to our donors. You can use this information not just in your email, but in your marketing as a whole. So I think you'll find this episode super helpful. But before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by our March freebie. You know this by now if you've been listening, right? The March freebie is all about the emails that you need to send before, so getting people to attend, register, come to your event. Once they've registered with important event information to encourage that they show up at the event, and afterwards, the follow-up that you're going to be giving them to share the impact that the event has created, give them another chance to give, and just follow up. So we've created a guide with all of those broken down for you, the different types of emails and who they should be sent to. So you can get that at thefirstclick.net/resources. I hope that you enjoy this freebie. And if you've got an event coming up, it's something that you can use for sure. So let's get into the episode. You're listening to the Digital Marketing Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Sammy Bedell-Mulhern. Each month, we dive deep into a digital marketing or fundraising strategy that you can implement in your organization. Each week, you'll hear from guest experts, nonprofits, and myself on best practices, tips, and resources to help you raise more money online and reach your organizational goals. Hey, everybody. Join me in welcoming John Gumas to the podcast. John, thank you for being here today.
Hi, Sammy. So nice to be with you.
I love email marketing. It's one of my most favorite topics. So before we jump into some tactics today, I'd love to hear from you why it's one of your favorite topics.
Yeah, it is, because if you do it right, it works. And it's a very cost-effective way to make things happen for any company. And, like all media in marketing, there are do's and don'ts, right? There are things that will make your email marketing work significantly better. But it's interesting. It's a very dangerous form of media on the other side too, because if you break some of the rules and you don't do it right, that prospect is done with you forever, right? So it can backfire on you if you don't do it right. And what makes that scary is it's so easy to do. And many times companies think they know, and they do it, and it backfires on them. So that's something that we can talk about, but companies really need to watch out for as well, because it's so easy to have that happen.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's lots of different tactics to consider, and I know we're going to talk about one in particular today. But before we kind of jump into that, I feel like with a lot of these marketing tactics, especially in the digital space, people will say, "Well, that doesn't work for my business or my industry." Are there any industries that you would say email can't be effective in?
Wow.
I
You
know
know
I kind
what?
of threw that right.
I
Yeah,
off the top of my head, I can't think of one because if they do it correctly,
yeah.
I can't think of one that wouldn't benefit from it. Every industry is different depending on who your clients are and what they expect and everything. But if no, so there's the long answer to your question is no.
No, I agree with that. Okay, so you already mentioned that email can be really powerful, but it can also, uh, hurt you if you're not kind of putting the right strategy behind it. So, maybe could you give us a couple of mistakes or common mistakes that you see people
Yeah, I
making?
would I would say the one I see most often is from our clients, they assume they know what their audience needs to hear. They assume they do, and that's kind of a normal thing to
Mm,
have happen because most businesses, CEOs, company owners, et cetera, live and breathe their company every single day. So when you do that, it's impossible, right, to step outside and look at your company like a prospective new customer or an existing customer would. So as a result, it creates this natural trap that you assume you think you know what they need to hear. And part of our process is we take clients through a discovery program to figure out exactly what it is we need to say to their clients. When we go through this process, 100% of the time, I've been doing this 40 years, so 40th anniversary. 100% of the time, Sammy, not 90, not 95, not 99, 100% of the time, what our clients think they need to say to their clients, their customers, is not exactly what their customers need to hear them say. So, with that said, if you say the right thing to the right person in the right way, it doesn't matter what you do, right? Direct mail, email marketing, social media, it doesn't matter. It's never going to resonate. So we try to emphasize to folks really
mhm.
understand who your audience is and what they need to hear you say, and how can you say that in a unique way, right? Unique from all your competitors, and to get people to actually respond. So until you do that, it's really kind of hard to really look at the tactical elements of anything.
Yeah. And so does that start with like really understanding the pain point? Because I, similar to you, I have this conversation with all of my clients, and that they always just want to say, well, this is the end result. If you work with us, this is what will happen. Your life will be changed, or you'll save the environment, or what, I mean, whatever. Like they go to the solution when the audience like hasn't even decided, like they're still dealing with like pain point number one. Like they haven't actually gotten all the way to where they're ready for that solution yet. So is it really kind of understanding, like you mentioned, who your audience is, but
Yeah,
what it is that
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
struggling with?
it is. And I would even add to that is it's understanding what are the actual words you have to use to get them to go, it's
Mhm.
exactly what I'm looking for. How did you know that's what I was looking for? Well, that very rarely happens by accident. It happens by asking your customers and your prospective customers the right questions in the right order in order for them to give you that information. And until you have that, it's hard. But I think with email marketing in particular, you have to understand that you're invading somebody's private space, right? You're invading right their home. You're walking into their home. So what is it that is going to allow them to invite you into the home? So the one thing that we see is the one of the no-nos is don't sell. Don't hard sell, especially at the beginning. Because think about it. When anywhere in our lives, your life, my life, your listeners' lives, when somebody starts to sell you something, that's the moment you kind of step back and go, oh, wait a minute. I'm not sure if I trust this person. I'm not sure if what they have to
Mm.
say is in my best interest. I'm just a little leery. When that happens, you're done. Right, you're done, and it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you say or how you say it. At that point, they're not going to listen to you. So this idea of don't sell and generating trust is really critical. It's really critical. So, and I think that's one of the traps that people fall into. Right? Hey, I'm going to sell something because they're going to want to buy it. I would, I would
Yeah.
think about that strategy.
Yeah. Well, and I think in the nonprofit space, the trap, in alignment with what you just said, the trap is, well, I don't want to send emails to all my donors because I don't want to harass them or bombard them. I don't want to be annoying. So then the only time that they email them is when they're in a fundraising campaign. So all they're doing is selling. They're never sending them stories or impact or doing that trust factor like what you said, because they have this feeling that if I send them emails on a weekly or a monthly basis, now I'm being annoying. So it's less annoying to just send them an email when I want to raise money, which is crazy to
Yeah,
me.
I agree. It's about value. So think about what we try to tell our clients is, and when we're doing these email campaigns for them, what we try to tell them is we need to earn their trust. We need to earn that time they
Mhm.
just gave us, so they invite us back for the next one. So we're big fans of the whole concept. I'm sure you're very familiar with thought leadership. Thought leadership. What is, let's say, in the case of a
Mhm.
nonprofit, we have lots of nonprofit clients, and we help them, figure out, what is, and they all have this very unique position. What is it that you do to help the world? What do you do to help your community? What is it? So you don't have to sell donations. You have to earn that by telling these stories, positioning the organization as the expert in this. We're the only ones that do this. This is how we help you, the community, the world, etc. You're not selling, but in essence, what you are doing is you're selling without selling, right? And that's a big
Mhm.
differentiation there. Whether you sell, give me money, or you can talk about all the wonderful things you do and the impact it has on the lives of which it touches. That's the best selling you can possibly do. And not only is it generates trust. It positions is the organization or you as the individual as the thought leader. It invites them back because, okay, what I just read, what I just saw was really moving, or was very informative, or I learned something that was incredible. That was great, right? So you've just engaged. And the engagement is critical. It's a very critical component of email marketing, because without engagement, it's just, you're never going to get that return. You're never going to get that success. So that those are very important elements.
Well, and engagement in email, like talk a little bit more about what that looks like, because I think that is one of the big differences, even though storytelling is something that should permeate through all of your marketing, and understanding who your audience is should permeate all your marketing. That engagement piece can look very different in the different platforms. So like what types of things might we want to be looking at, as far as like, hey, is this story or type of communication resonating more with our audience than
Well,
others?
the ultimate test, right? The ultimate test is results, your analytics. How well did that story resonate, right? How many people looked at it? How many people clicked on the link? How many people? Whatever your metrics are, right? Track that, and you learn. So the stories that engage more, you want to do things very similar to that. But again, it's understanding your audience. It's not selling to your audience. It's being a thought leader, but it's also looking closely at the analytics. The analytics are critical, because you want to get better and better and better with each email you send out. All right, and then you start talking about frequency. Right? When is it, when too often or not enough? So there's a real fine line. It's almost an art form. It's not really a science. It's an art form, because every company is different, right? In terms of their audience and how much information their audience wants to consume from you. So you don't want to send your emails out so often that you become a bother and people, I don't want to hear from them anymore. But then you don't want to send them out too distant to where they forget you in between. So there is, there is
Right.
this fine line, but those are the things that you just have to test and look at and be wary of as you're doing this. A good rule of thumb, and this is just strictly a general rule of thumb, is around every 30-day ish. Maybe a little earlier for some, a little later for others, but kind of in there. You could send them out more often if you think you have content that's worthy, or if you think you have news to break, or you have something that warrants something a little more often. But you can't look desperate, right? You can't. You're doing a service, and that's how you have to look at your email. You're doing the recipient a service. They're inviting you in their home. It's no different. Think about walking through the front door, sitting down in their living room, and having a chat with them. If you walk in there and say, "Hey, I want to sell you some Amway stuff," I'm guessing you may not be invited back, right? But if you sat down and you respected them and you respected their time and their intelligence, and you had a conversation where at the end of that conversation, the recipient said, "Wow, that was worth my time. That was really interesting." They will invite you back. So that's what we try to tell our clients. That's kind of the model that you think of when you're doing email marketing, because like all digital marketing, it's so easy for them to click that button that says delete. I don't want to hear from you anymore. Do not get back to me. And that's because you haven't done a good enough job of showing them the value of your communication.
Yeah, and I think, if you're just getting started, you might have one master list, but as your email marketing, as you grow, as you expand, as you kind of build, part of that right message, right time, right person, the storytelling, the cadence, can also change with segmentation, right? Like understanding, like these people, this group of people care about our children's programming. This group of people care about our senior citizens programming. These people care about our, young adult programming, and like being able to really then send specific messages to those audiences so they're getting what they care about and not getting bombarded with stuff that they could.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's kind of the ultimate goal, right? That's the ultimate place you want to be. But, with every new vertical, every new list segment, right, becomes another messaging exercise in itself. So, as you expand your list, you have to expand your messaging as well. So I think every organization has to ask themselves, do we have the capability to do that? Because you got to be careful. If you don't want to get yourself in a position where you can't do it and you do it wrong. Versus doing that, and the other the real common form of communication too is the classic e-newsletter, where the audience, the recipient, kind of self-selects what they want, because there is a category, a story on the kids, there is a category, a story on the community, so they kind of self-select. And so that's kind of a faster, easier way, not as effective as you described, right? Where you segment the list, but still, I think it comes down to the reality of, can you do it? And in terms of, so don't overextend yourself, right? To where you can't do whatever the execution is correctly.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to go back to kind of how you started this conversation, in that messaging can be done wrong if we're not talking to the right people. So if we're like, okay, I want to do a review of what we're talking about. We want to try. We have a goal to increase our conversions, whatever that conversion looks like for you. If can we just go talk to our donors and say, like, what about this email did you like or did you not like? Like, how can we kind of start to go through that process of refining our messaging, understanding the words, the language that we're using, and kind of do better with regards to that plan?
I would caution on that from the perspective of, this is the whole messaging approach is not just for email marketing. The whole messaging approach is for your entire brand, right? So your entire brand, whatever the tactics you use, should use the same strategy. We're talking about the same messaging. And I can tell you how we go. So we have a process. I'll go through very quickly, not to bore anybody here. So we refer to it as a discovery. So we will speak to our clients' because they're the most critical source of data that we can find, because they have all gone through the process to choose our clients, right? There was something about our client that they chose. So what we do is we interview their clients. Not all of them. We only need sometimes just a dozen or so, maybe a little less, a little more. And we interview them on the telephone. And we do it specifically on the telephone because in a visual setting like this, you're intimidated, right? You're looking at somebody, you get a little intimidated. In a focus group, there tends to be one or two people that dominate everything, and everyone else, so you never get everyone's true thoughts. But on a telephone call, one-on-one, you really have the opportunity, especially if you ask the right types of questions, you really get the opportunity to pull out the truth, the real reason why they chose to support that nonprofit. They chose to buy from that organization. They chose, to hire that company. You get that true information. Then we start to see consistencies. So that's the first segment of interviews. The second segment we do is internally, because when you're looking at a brand and messaging, you can't create that brand message that is not true to the essence of who that organization is. So we do similar format of messaging to our clients themselves, everyone from the CEO down to marketing folks to whoever the key people are, because we need to understand the essence of their brand. And what really comes out of that is what our clients think and what their customers or donors think do not line up. And so that's part of the alignment.
Right.
And the third piece, just to make it fun, right? What we do is we analyze their most key competitors. What are they saying? How are they saying it? All right. What's their message? Because when you're out there, you got to understand, especially when it comes to new prospects, they have choices. They have choices. So we have to understand how they're positioning themselves. So from those three main points of data, right in the middle lies the essence of who this organization is, the truth. And then we take that data, and that's when we create the messaging, right? The messaging. And messaging can be from elevator pitch all the way down to a tagline, everything in between. And and then that's when your marketing really starts to work, because now you're saying the right things to the right people.
Yeah, and we've done an episode on kind of creating a language guide, which is kind of similar to what you're talking about here. So I'll make sure to link that up in the show notes if people want more of a deep dive into kind of what that looks like and how you can create something. But I want to touch on, because I love that this is like a multifaceted approach, that it's not just about what your clients think, but it's what internally, how people are talking about it. I've worked with so many different organizations where the way the development team talks about something is completely different from the marketing team, is completely different from the admin team. So when we all come together for meetings, everybody gets confused. But also, a lot of times the language we're going to get back from our customers, donors, clients is maybe a little bit more casual. It's not going to be using the technical terms. It's definitely not jargon. So as we kind of come back to our leadership in our organization and we say, okay, these are the words that we're finding people are using when they talk about us, there's pushback there sometimes. So how do we kind of work through that and determine our voice as an organization, but also wanting to connect with the people that we're serving or looking to become donors?
The number one way you're ever going to connect with anyone is through emotion. It's not through technical jargon, or it's not through mathematical formulas. It's through emotion, and especially at the beginning, because most of what we do, especially when it comes to prospecting for new clients, new donors, is about connecting and starting a conversation. All right. You can, at some point, after 10 conversations, you can go through a mathematical formula, whatever you want at that point. But at the beginning, it's emotional. It's connecting. And that type of jargon that you described is emotional. It connects. It's, wow, okay, there's an organization I want to be part of. There's an organization that's doing great things for the community. There's an organization that can really help my company. Whatever you're trying to do, it's critical. And that messaging comes from the prospect, right? It's, again, what we said earlier. You have to say what they need to hear you say, because when they hear what they think they need to hear, that's when they go, where have you been? I've been looking for you. It's exactly what I need. That doesn't happen by accident. In rare cases, you stumble upon it, but typically it doesn't happen by accident. And you discover that through the process, because once you know that, everything works better. Not just your email marketing, everything works better, because now when somebody sees something you do, whether it's social media, email marketing, you name it, the same response. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So that's, it's cool.
Yeah, I love that. And
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, if you are like, okay, well, I don't know where to start. Now I'm like rethinking about all of my platforms. Like, even if you start with your email, like, let's say you do a monthly or a bi-monthly email that goes out to your audience, that's storytelling, that's general value add, those, putting your efforts into one of a longer form kind of content piece can then you just duplicate and take that and repurpose it and utilize that across all the other channels. You don't have to come up with new for all of those different
Yeah, you're absolutely
avenues.
right, and that's the smart way to do it. Especially, like, think of, let's just take an example. Let's say you do it every month. That's exactly what you want to do. So 1 month, right? You have a piece of content you're focusing on, a position, a thought leadership platform you're focusing on, and you take that and repurpose it. Your YouTube video, your podcast, your email marketing, your social media, whatever it is you have in your arsenal of marketing tactics. Yes, you do that, and it becomes very efficient, and you're essentially surrounding your audience. So your audience now sees and hears the same
Yeah.
message all over, and it resonates with them, because you need to tell people more than once, right? And that is a tactic we use all the time, and it's a very, very smart tactic, and it's a very cost effective tactic as well.
Right, because if you're a smaller team and you don't have to create brand new things
Right.
all the time, I think we write down kind of a game plan of like, okay, if I write one blog post, like this is the whole checklist of everything, and it can generate 20 some other pieces of content that you can use for the whole month. So now you as a nonprofit no longer have an excuse for I don't have time to
Yeah.
do
Yeah, and don't
marketing.
forget, the search generating content value of all that, right? The SEO value of all
Yeah.
that now people, if they're searching for that topic, your white paper, your blog, your whatever it is, it comes up. And that's a critical component to the overall marketing mix.
I love that. Okay, so I think the moral of the story today is really focus in on who your ideal audience is, what their pain points are, and the words that they use to talk about the incredible work that you do to start refining your messages and your storytelling. If is there any other kind of tips or strategies that you think are in line with this that I haven't asked about that you'd love to
Yeah,
share?
just a few, right? First thing I'm going to emphasize: don't sell. Right, the best way to sell is not to sell,
Yeah.
and be a thought leader. So I just want to emphasize that because that's important. But specific to email marketing, you want to get to the point. I think, especially when you have 2 to 3 seconds to get their attention. Keep it short, keep it conversational. If you need a lot of information, you use bullets and so forth versus long. But forgive me for plugging this, but I recently wrote a book called Challenger Brand Marketing, and there's chapters in that book that go in detail of not only email marketing, but a lot of the other strategies that companies should look at. So it's way too much to explain in our short time. But in that book, there's incredible detail on what to do, how to do it yourself.
Well, and we had your business partner on the podcast last year talking about Challenger brand marketing. So we'll make sure to link that up
Great,
as well.
thanks.
Yeah. Well, I think so many good things. John, I really appreciate you being here today and sharing your thoughts on messaging, because I do think it's critically important. And I think the more we can show up authentically and not, like you said, not sell and not try to game the system or be super tricky with our marketing, people see that and they relate to that. And so I love your approach to all of this. I think it's fantastic and totally aligned with the stories and the messaging that we share on this podcast. So thank you for that. But John, if people want to grab your book or learn more about your organization, how they can get a hold of you,
So they can go to our website. It's gumas.com, Gumas.com. And if they have a question for me, they can email me at jgumas@gumas.com and just mention your name, and I will respond back.
I love that. And we'll link all of this up in the show notes at thefirstclick.net/250. John, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you,
today.
Sam. I really enjoyed it. It was a pleasure.
Thank you again to John for being such an incredible guest and sharing all of his words of wisdom and insight. I love talking about storytelling and messaging and how it can make an impact and how we can think about things from our perspective. Because a lot of times it's hard. We've been in this business for a while, or we've been working for an organization for a while. We know the intimate details of everything that we do. So remembering to put it in a different mindset is super helpful and critical. So again, thank you to John for being here. The episode, show notes, resources, all of the things are available at thefirstclick.net/250. Thank you so much for listening. I enjoy coming to you every single week with this digital marketing therapy podcast. Please make sure you subscribe wherever you listen so you don't miss out on this episode or bonus episodes that are coming out during the month. You can always watch them live on YouTube at Digital Marketing Therapy as well. Not live. You can watch the video. We don't go live on YouTube. Forget that I said that. Anyway, Digital Marketing Therapy on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening and taking some time with me here, and I will see you in the next one.